Today, we will be taking a look at Evolved Sukuna and what is the best build to go for. This is currently one of the most frequently asked questions amongst the player base, and there is, guys, pretty much at the moment 3 different viable builds. So anyway, we're gonna jump. I'm gonna showcase all 3 of the builds for you guys, and once we're done, we're gonna decide what build is the best to go for. But anyway, before we do that, let's just have a little bit of fun and let's one-shot everything. Alright, so Sukuna is by far the most diverse unit in the game right now. It actually has 4 distinct talent builds that you can run right now. It doesn't have 3, like I said earlier, but for the sake of not making things way too complicated, we are gonna skip the elemental build completely. And yeah, I think this is a mistake on the game's end. It does cause some confusion. I think they should just rename the stuff in the skill tree to element. So for example, you see this elemental penetration should be renamed to element penetration, etc., just so it doesn't confuse people. Because when people hear the word elemental, they think of bleed, fire, dismantle, etc., whilst this elemental refers to elements. So anyway, let's get that out of the way, the element tree. This is for a completely different video. I do have a video on the elements if you guys are curious as to how they work, and I have a video on specific talent trees. But anyway, for this video, we're gonna go ahead and break down the 3 main builds for Sukuna. So currently there is 3 builds. First, we have the full crit DPS build Sukuna. Then we have the bleed DPS Sukuna. And lastly, we have the Nuke Sukuna. So, as you can probably tell, based on the distinction between dot or full crit Sukuna, it literally just comes down to your technique. What technique do you get is going to define what you go for. Obviously, in our case, I have Overload, which, by the way, is the favorite option. It is better than Avatar. But if you do happen to get Avatar, do not reroll off it. It's still a very decent option, but ideally you want to be going for Overload, right? So we're going to start with full DPS Sukuna, which is what I currently have on my Sukuna as well. Full crit DPS, and the path is probably the standard path that you guys have seen. Starting right here, minus SPA, into crit damage, into 4 SPA. You can go SPA or damage. I personally like the SPA a little bit more than the damage. Then you go right here in this middle path, and then you go for the big crit path. Then empower into this, into bullseye, obviously to cap off. So that is full crit DPS Sukuna. You want to be running this build if you're planning to use Sukuna as a DPS unit, because a lot of people, when you ask them, like, do you want to use him as a nuke or as a DPS, they're like, oh, Sukuna is my best unit, I want to use him as a DPS. So if you do want to use him for a DPS purposes, that's the build that you want to run. Now, in case you happen to get Avatar on this guy, oh, one thing I want to mention as well, this build that I just showcased you guys with the crit does apply for any other passives that you might have. Like any other thing that you might have rolled that gives you damage, like Juggernaut, Vulture, Demigod, Cosmic, All-Seeing, Shinigami even, which I don't have. You want to use this crit build, right? You just treat him as a DPS unit. Now, for the Avatar build, the DPS build, it is more or less the same. Things don't really change. One thing to keep in mind is that currently, crits do not affect bleed. That is going to be changed eventually. Crits will affect bleed in some sort of way. But even if you treat the unit as a bleed unit, this is still the way to go, I believe. Except with a minor change that you want to be going for damage here and not the SPA. Because after speaking with BMG yesterday, one of the owners of the game, they said that once they fix bleeds, the bleeds are not going to be stacking. Instead, the highest bleed is going to be overwritten on top of the other bleeds. So you just want the highest base damage possible. And I honestly still think that, actually no, if you want to play that build, you want to go this side for Devastation Mastery, because bleeds scale off your damage, right? And if you are planning to play the Avatar build for bleeds, you want to be going here on the right side because of the 25% flat damage increase. You don't really want to be going for crit. Actually, I don't know. Depends how crit is going to affect the bleeds. But as of right now, since crits do not affect bleeds, if you have Avatar Sukuna, you go this side, Devastation Mastery, right? So that is the second build. That is the Blade build. And lastly, as you guys probably know, Sukuna has a activatable ability Flame Arrow, which is an AoE nuke, and it is a pretty broken nuke. So before I show you guys the build for this nuke, we're gonna jump into a recording from yesterday while I was on stream with BMG. He was showcasing the Sukuna unit with the nuke build, and I'll talk a little bit about after that. But basically, the first thing that you have to know is how the nuke actually works. Alright guys, so this is the build for Nuke Sukuna, and as you can see, placement damage is going to be really high, 7.02 thousand, and very low SP as well, 1.1, and there you go. You see he's going to be upgrade damage, like it's going to go high, and I think it caps around 400,000 at the max upgrade. I'm not entirely sure, so let's see. 215, 300k, 404k at 3.05 SPA. So very high base damage with this build. That's basically what we're aiming for, since his ultimate scales off his damage. Now let's do a little bit of math right here. So Flame Arrow does damage times 25x, so it would be 404,000 times 25. That should pretty much give you an equivalent of 10.1 million on hit damage on the arrow. That is AoE, cross-map AoE. Now, that's only the first part of the Flame Arrow. After the on-hit effect, the units that take damage have a burn effect applied to them, and obviously, the burn effect is gonna scale based on the amount of damage the Flame Arrow did. Now, burn is 2.7x times damage, so we're gonna do 10.1 million times 2.7, and that should give us a 27.27 million burn effect over 4 seconds. So if you combine all of that, Flame Arrow damage ends up at 37.37 million damage. Now, honestly, this is ridiculous. My opinion is absolutely ridiculous. And if I was to rank the best builds for Sukuna, Nuke build comes first, because think about it like this, guys. Like, there is a lot of damage units in the game that's going to do decent damage. Guts, you have Roy Mustang, you even have, hell, you have Saitama. Like, Saitama is pretty decent at doing damage. So, but Sukuna is the only nuke. Obviously, when you go for infinites, you do need that heavy nuke to postpone the run, I guess, and just like buy yourself a couple of times for a couple more waves. So you do need that Flame Arrow. Now, 37 million damage is a lot. I don't know what wave Nightmare Infinite has that much HP on the bosses, but on normal Infinite, which I've been AFKing, the wave 130 boss has 42 million. So if you just do a little bit of damage at the start plus Flame Arrow, should be enough to kill him. I would probably assume that you can kill wave 140 boss by yourself, even just by doing a lot of damage before he gets out of range and then just Flame Arrowing him. So you can tell that it's the must-have. So for that reason, Nuke build goes first. Now, the next best build is gonna be the crit build for Sukuna, and the reason for that is not because Avatar or Blade units suck. In most cases, Blade Sukuna, or rather Dismantle if you want, just to be correct, would be better, but Sukuna is a single placement unit, so you don't really benefit from that. Now, spoiler alert, in case you guys watch streams and stuff with the admins, you probably know that, but placement will be removed from Sukuna, from Avatar, sorry. So, for example, if you have like Avatar Roy Mustang or Avatar Itachi, you will be able to place 3 or 4 of them down at once. So, obviously, DPS-wise, that is gonna outperform Overlord crit by a lot, but considering Sukuna is just barely a one placement unit, Overload crit build is gonna be better, because you also have Overload, which buffs your high damage, your base damage by a lot, which means that your Flame Arrow will still be relevant. It's not gonna be as strong as the Nuke build, but it is gonna be really good. And the third one is gonna be, obviously, the Avatar Flame build. It's still very good. I've had people asking me, yo, I have Avatar Sukuna, should I reroll it? You only reroll Avatar of Sukuna for Overload in 2 scenarios, okay? Hear me out. First scenario is if you are a lunatic, that's when you roll it. Second is if you are filthy rich and you don't really care. That's the only reason you want to roll off Avatar and Sukuna. It's a 1 in 1000 chance curse technique. It's a very rare one, and it is really good. It's just, particularly on Sukuna, it's not as good as Overlord, but still, you are not gonna reroll off Avatar. If you guys have Avatar, just chill. It's a Blade unit, it's a DPS unit, not the best, but it's still very good DPS unit. dismantle, but that's about it. And yeah, that should pretty much just sum up Sukuna. And I guess hopefully after this video, you guys can probably use the same principle on other units and stuff like that. A lot of people have been asking me to make like a video about every unit and what talent builds every unit should follow. I don't think it's really needed. You just like can use common sense. But yeah, these are the 3 basic builds on Sukuna. Let me know which one you guys are rolling with, and I'll catch you guys in the next. Peace.